How are you? Well, I am here from one of the classrooms of the University of Tolima. I didn't happen to see any of the defenders of the permanent assembly here at the university this afternoon. I suppose they're at home. But well, anyway, the idea of this video, guys, as we have already mentioned in our agreement, is that you're able to, let's say, be exposed to some of the principles of the topics that we are working on, or that we were supposed to be working on at this time of the period. Um, let's say that anybody who's curious that wants to, let's say, advance a little bit on the topics can do it in an independent way. One more time, just like I have mentioned in all the other videos that I have done, I remind you that this is not a subject of, let's say, direct evaluation. There are no exercises attached to this that you are supposed to mandatorily do, and this is just more of an illustration exercise. Um, so, before the interruption of our classes, we basically covered a couple of exercises about brainstorming and let's say using some different um, models in order to catch our isolated ideas and try to put them into more or less a chaotic way into a graphic organizer or something similar. The idea is that this is a very primary exercise in order for you to have ideas about to write, so you don't have this syndrome of staring blankly at the page, not knowing what to write. So that was, let's say, a first exercise. So what we're going to try to do now is to be able to organize an outline. Okay, so along with this video, I am attaching a new version of the presentation that we have been working, and it's updated. So if you can follow such presentation as we're talking about in here in these videos, I am talking there, so it would be a little bit easier for you. So if you go into that presentation right now and go to the slide, sorry, number 5858, you are going to see something that's called essay writing. So remember that that is the final part of our um, semester, so the idea is just to start working on that. What we're going to try to do today, and the idea is that you can replicate it in your free time if you want to be like in, let's say, in contact with the practical side of this exercise, is writing an outline. So what is an outline? As we can find in there, the let's say the definition says an outline summarizes the ideas that we are going to use in our essay. So it basically compiles all these different ideas. It anticipates what we're going to write and facilitates mapping our text. So I know that writing is difficult, so probably the most difficult part of it is not knowing what to write, and as I mentioned, staring blankly at the page and not knowing like what to do. So by using this um, outline that it's sort of a summarized version of what we're going to write in the complete essay, we guarantee that we can refer to that structure, to that map, and know what is going next, verify if what we did previously was okay, and all these different things. As it says in there, if you're confused, anytime you can check the outline and verify if we're going in the right direction, if we're writing what we were supposed to write, if we just sort of lost our ways, and it's really easy, sorry, to compare the text versus our plan, we will see if we're doing it right or not. So the idea is that we are going to start by doing a simple one, a simple outline, and that is basically writing one sentence or one idea. Even we can be very practical and use it. It's not a complete sentence, but just an interrupted one or a couple of words, whatever that works for you. Let's say that the outline, the important thing is that it works for you, that you understand it, and that later on in your process of actual writing of the essay, you're going to be able to understand what you wanted to do. So let's say that whatever format that works for you, it's fine, because actually you are the one or the only one who's going to use that. So as I mentioned, the simple format of the outline is to write an idea, a sentence, a word for every single paragraph that you're going to write. The idea is that just like in the structure of the single paragraph, we are going to try to use 5 paragraphs in here, right? In the paragraph, we had the sentence, or 5 sentences, 1 introductory sentence, at least 3 supporting sentences, and 1 conclusive sentence for a total of 5. So we are going to do exactly the same in the essays, and we are going to just amplify those sentences, or we are going to transform them into paragraphs. So we are going to have one introductory paragraph, 3 supporting paragraphs, and 1 conclusive paragraph. So one more time, we're talking about 5 different paragraphs, each paragraph containing a minimum of 5 different ideas or sentences, right? So basically what we're doing is an exercise of amplifying some things that we already do very well, because you're working in narrative paragraphs, expository paragraphs, well, argumentative paragraphs, right? So that's basically what we're going to be doing. So remember that the main concept of the essay, we can find a lot of different ones, but basically it's an instrument, a written text by means of which an author, a person, is trying to convince his readers, his or her readers, of something, right? So he's trying to present an idea vehemently, let's say in a sufficiently supported way, so his auditory, his readers are able to believe him, and eventually somebody gets convinced for that, right? So it's very important to take that into account. This is an argumentative exercise. That's why the immediate previous topic that we talked about was argumentation, and we practice a lot with that. There's a lot of different argumentative tactics or strategies that you can use, and of course the idea is that you translate or use those strategies into essay writing. So if we go into the slide number 59, yes, it says introductory paragraph. So imagine that just like we're going here into all this situation at the university, we're going to use a very, let's say, current example. And I use it with a personal opinion that I have, that it's supported, I guess. And it's that a student movement at Universidad del Tolima wouldn't work without people. Like, with people it's not possible to, let's say, use or advance at all in any organization movement, particularly, specifically, I'm being like very specific here, Universidad del Tolima. So as you can see, that is the summary of my introductory paragraph. At the moment of writing the introductory paragraph itself, so I am going to try to look, we already have a main idea, maybe I need to rephrase it. I am going to include 3 supporting ideas that guarantees that that idea is true, and then I am going to include a conclusive paragraph, conclusive idea, I'm sorry, that is going to sort of give some closure to that paragraph. But for now, as I mentioned, I am just putting the most important introductory idea in there, in the introductory paragraph. If we go into the next slide, the number 60, so we have the supporting paragraph number 1. So what is going to be that paragraph about? Well, I came up with this idea: no people to go to the marches or produce banners, right? So that is my, let's say, my main idea in order to use a supporting argument to try and convince my reader of why people are necessary for this, right? So in the paragraph itself, I'm going to use 3 supporting ideas that tell me why would it be important that people are there, because otherwise there wouldn't be anybody to go to a march, a manifestation, to produce banners or different things. But for now, that's what is going to be my supporting paragraph. Now, if I go into the supporting paragraph number 2, the main idea that I have here is no one in the university in case administration decides to make any arbitrary decision. So nobody will be here, and if the administration, the managers, the principal, any other person with authority or organism with authority decides to do something arbitrary, well, simply there wouldn't be anybody to oppose them, right? So basically that's my idea of the supporting paragraph number 2. Supporting paragraph number 3, it's non-representative minorities making decisions for everybody, right? So in this paragraph, I may write about how a very small group of people are truly making decisions that may be good or may be bad, we don't know. But the fact is that this small group of people are basically making decisions for a very big amount of people, right? So that would be my supporting paragraph number 3. Finally, I am going to have a conclusive paragraph that, as I mentioned before, and as we talked about in previous classes, well, it's supposed to be exactly the same that is presented in the introduction. Of course, when you're going to actually write it, you can change it, you can modify it a little bit, but the main idea must be exactly the same, that it's a student movement at Universidad del Tolima wouldn't work without people, right? Remember that for this we have a lot of different options, right? For a conclusion, you can include a personal opinion, you can include a judgment, you can include, well, there's a big list that you can refer to in this same PowerPoint presentation, and let's say different options to modify this idea of conclusive paragraphs, right? So as you can see, we just did 5 different sentences, right? And that outline is ready. Yes, that is the most essential structure of an outline. That's pretty simple, right? Once you have that ready, you're able to start writing your essay, and it's going to be much easier because you know what is going to be in each single part of it. And even though 5 paragraphs sounds like a big quantity, you are going to be able to write it in a smaller amount of time because you already have a plan, right? Now, that is the simple format, right? But if we go into the number 64, the slide number 64, we are going to have a detailed outline. So here I just want to do an observation, right? So you can do a simplistic outline like the one that we just did, that was composed by 5 different sentences, and that's fine. But let's say that is recommended for very creative people who have good memory, or people who eventually is going to have the capacity of improvise certain arguments based on a single idea. Not everybody works in that way, right? And that's just fine. We all have different capacities. But if you sometimes struggle with writing, if you sometimes just spend a lot of time thinking about what to write, maybe the detailed outline is going to be a better option for you. Of course, it is going to invest, or it's going to take more time in the, let's say, anticipation process than the actual writing, but probably it's going to save you tons of times of writing and frustration and a lot of different things. So what is this? What's like the difference between the previous one? It's very simple. It's just that it includes the supporting ideas of each section, right? You're supposed to write a paragraph or 5 paragraphs, right? And in the previous structure, we had only one word, that one sentence, sorry, that could be normally the main idea of that paragraph. So the idea of a detailed outline is that it's going to include that main idea, and it's going to include the 3 supporting ideas, right? So in that way, by the time you're going to write, you're going to have almost everything like ready. You're just going to need to polish a little bit the connectors, to check the spelling, the punctuation, and of course look for the adequate words, avoid repetition, well, different things, but it's going to be easier. So we're going to do exactly the same exercise. Take a look at this. We're going one by one. So let's go back to the introductory paragraph, right? And as you can see, it's exactly the same. It has the main idea that it's a student movement at Universidad del Tolima wouldn't work without people. Yes, that it's the main idea of that one. But then I included in this moment the three different supporting ideas. What are those? Well, very simple. The ones that are going to be in supporting paragraphs number 1, 2, and 3. No people to go to the marches or produce the banners. That will be my first supporting idea. No one in the university in case administration decides to make an arbitrary decision. And finally, non-representative minorities making decisions for everybody. So that is going to be my introductory paragraph. Really simple. I just look for a way to put it in that way and maybe include a conclusive sentence, and that's it. That will be ready. Right? That will be the introductory paragraph. If we go into the next slide, that is the 65, we are going to find the first supporting paragraph. Just like in the previous case, we are going to have the first main idea, no people to go to the marches or produce the banners. But the difference here is that now I am going to start thinking about what are the supporting ideas that may convince my reader that that is a problem, that people not going to the marches or produce the banner is a problem. Well, I have put it in here, something like that. The first one is that people return to their hometowns or just stay at home in anticipated vacation, right? So that is, of course, a problem, and that develops the main idea that I have. Then I say the impact of people who stays is minimum and would just look like the problematic bunch, right? So what I'm trying to say in here is that as there are so little people or so few people, sorry, at the university, whatever activity that they do has the potential of not being very relevant, not being very, I mean, the scope of the impact is really reduced. And as we are going to be seeing always the same guys, always the same 5, always the same 6, well, they are going to start to be sort of labeled, right? Oh, again these guys, again this 5, again this 6. Oh, they're always problematic, they're always the one, you know, causing some ruckus. So that, of course, it's, let's say, problematic because, well, if we had more people, the risk of receiving some label would be, of course, less, and let's say the perception of outside sources is that it will be a collective thing. Finally, it says any activity, blockade, a march, an assembly, painting the faculty, whatever, will be certainly limited by a scarce number of people. So no matter how good or how interesting or how meaningful is our activity, it has the potential of fail a little bit or a lot because of the lack of people, right? So as you can see, different from the previous one, I included in here the 3 supporting ideas, and that's hopefully going to be able to help me write my essay in a quicker and more effective way. Now, in the paragraph number 2, or supporting paragraph 2, I'm sorry, it's no one in the university in case administration decides to make any arbitrary decision. So one more time, here I have 3 supporting ideas. So there is not going to be a strong opposition to academic decisions. So if there's nobody at the university or a very small group of people, and the principals of any other, let's say the faculty, any other organism or group of managers in the university decides, for example, to make an unfair decision about academics, well, there's nobody or there's not a lot of people or enough people to be an opposition to that. The same with managerial decision. What if they decide that, let's say, let's cancel the restaurant, let's cancel the service of the library, let's stop paying the monitors their salaries. Well, all these different things that they could do. I am not saying that they will do it, but we're looking about an imaginary scenario. So there wouldn't be enough people to oppose that. Like the few people who are here, like they would just accept, or they wouldn't even know, right? Like by the time that they return next semester, that everybody returns, like decisions would have already taken, would be already taken. Finally, no strong opposition to possible disciplinary sanctions or illegal persecution, right? So if there's just a few people, the same 5 or 6, imagine that the university would like to impose any sort of disciplinary sanction because of the interruption of the academic activities. or which is worse, that there's some sort of illegal persecution, paramilitary persecution, political persecution, all these different things that can even like end up in menacing the lives of people. Well, there wouldn't be like any collective way to protect each other, because it's again the same 4 or 5 people and they wouldn't have the support of anybody else. So that will be the supporting paragraph number 2. Then we go to supporting paragraph with the supporting paragraph number 3, and it's that non-representative minorities are making decisions for everybody. So I developed here these 3 additional ideas. The first one is that there's a possible lack of objectivity due to small groups that think alike. Of course, I've been like during this whole 3 or 4 or 5 weeks of academic interruption, and we are going to be together with the same 4 or 5 people, and we are going to continue together. Well, the most likely scenario is that they all think alike. They all think in the same way, that they don't have a lot of differences. And that's really dangerous, right? Like not having an objective outside perception and opposition, that may be dangerous, right? Ideologically speaking. Then, as a second idea, we have loss of focus due to lack of different perspective. It has, of course, complementary with the previous one. So let's say that these 4 or 5 people, or 6, or whatever number, again, I'm just using a random number, that stays here and that it's a small group, may not have the perspective of people who works in December, people who have to pay the rent, maybe people who have family issues and let's say for this reason would prefer to continue in a, let's say, escalated assembly, or people who are mothers, or, well, a lot of different perspectives, right? That might be interesting and, of course, necessary to nurture the debate. And finally, some decisions have the potential to be later rejected by the absent majority, right? Like, let's say that these decisions that are made by the small group of people are later rejected. Like people, or the majority, wouldn't recognize that and would say, hey, you know, I wasn't there when it happened, so you couldn't make your decision for me. Of course, this is debatable, right? Because we know that you all have representatives and that you have some mechanisms in which supposedly democracy works, but we all know that that's not the case all the time, right? So if anybody decides like not following a particular idea because he was not there, because he was working, because he was from another city or something like that, there's a lot of potential of a waste of time, because this small group of people made decisions that were not consonant with the will of the majority, the absent majority, the responsible majority, of course, but majority nonetheless. So in the case that they decide to unite or something similar, well, it's going to be sort of an impact for the students' movement. Finally, we go into the conclusive paragraph in there. And well, just one more time, the idea is that you finish the essay, well, in this case, the detailed outline with some ideas about the conclusion, and we just can go back to the previous part when I mentioned, or when I explained the conclusive paragraphs, and you can extract that information, you just put them in there. So that's it, guys, for today. The idea is that you use this exercise in order to know a little bit about the functionality and creation of outlines. For anybody there who freely and willingly and not repressively or coercively demanded in order to be doing this, a good exercise that I would recommend and that I will not evaluate, right? At least not in the framework of these activities, is taking the ideas that you sent me some weeks ago about the brainstorming and try to create an outline for an essay based on those ideas. As I mentioned, it can be a simplistic outline that is composed by 5 sentences, Or if you prefer and it's better for you, you can create a detailed outline, right? Remember that I am open to revise any of your documents, even if it's not an evaluation, it doesn't have any sort of, let's say, consequence in terms of academic assessment. I am willing to revise your documents and make any comments or anything like that. So basically that's it. Thanks a lot for your attention, for the people who are going to watch this video. And well, that's it. Until here, let's say that was the agreement that we got, that was sort of recovering the weeks before the permanent assembly. And I guess that for the rest, you will have to wait and see what happens, right? Because you are, this is a video for reading composition, and you are the ones who decided just to receive the videos until there. So I just honoring that decision, and you will have just to wait and see what happens with the semester, with the cancellation, sorry, with the possible delay or any of the other solutions that are proposed in there. So until then, we will see each other or not. Yeah, it really depends on certain medical conditions, as you know, and the dates of the resuming of the semester, but well, I guess we will see. So thanks a lot, have a good night, and see you around. Thank you.